Good. Okay.
Let's call this meeting, the Ocean Highway and Port Authority, together for Wednesday, March 21st, 2020. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to get together as commissioners to take care of the business of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority. Please direct us in everything that we do so that all that we do will be acceptable to you and to the benefit of our citizens. Father, we ask a special blessing on our military men and women, protect them as they protect us and our first responders. All these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Please turn off your cell phones. Put them on vibrate. Here, roll call, please. Rosanna.
I'll do it.
I know you would.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Hannah,
Here.
Commissioner Franklin,
Here.
Vice Chairman Cole,
Here.
Chairman Fullwood.
Present.
Thank
I
you.
looked on my roll call and Miriam's the first name, so that's why I said that for some reason. Okay. No comments from the audience tonight? All right, let's start with the Port Attorney's report. We got a lot of things we need to cover, so buckle up.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll start with what's on the agenda. What I delivered to you this afternoon and hard copies tonight. That's a draft of the security services RFP. I'll say it's been difficult to find a security services RFP that's applicable to a port of this size. Both ports that have recently issued RFPs that we use for a model are much larger, have much different things going on and different requirements. So it's taken quite a bit of work. Also, we want to make sure, which I'm not finished with yet, but didn't want to muddy things up tonight, make sure that we are working on federal procurement consistency in their guidelines. So I put a draft in front of you. I know I just delivered it to you today. I'm not expecting a whole lot of feedback, but I would encourage you to look at it. I provided it to Mr. Ragucci as well. He certainly knows way more about what's needed out there than I do. So I'll need his input and this board's input. I can take comments tonight or give you time to review it and be prepared to finalize in a couple of weeks when we reconvene. But I wanted you to know that we have been working on it. It's just been difficult to keep it from turning into a 50 or 60 page RFP.
You have the previous contract.
I do have the previous contract, however, it's approaching 10 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty outdated. I think the main concern would be what salaries you want to put in.
Well, the other thing to consider, which I'm trying to do with this, is to not put too much contract terms in the RFP.
Right.
But instead invite the solicitations, give the, not the basics, but give the guidelines and the structure, the scope of services that we need to see. And then the detail can be in the actual contract document itself. A lot of RFPs for services like this actually contain virtually all of the contract terms, which makes them very sort of unwieldy RFPs. So I was trying to not simplify, but to narrow this down, focus on what you all may be looking for to ensure that we get a number. One of the things that's only been a short time, it's been only over a year, but I've noticed is the responses to some of the RFPs that we issue are very minimal. So I'm trying to do this so that we can try to reach as many folks as possible and then work on the details of the contract. So.
Right. Any questions about what we're looking at here for now? Or do you want to just table this until first meeting next month? That'd be next time.
If I get some comments, we can, we're again, working on the federal language to include.
Right.
So we can, right, that's not really up for debate. There may be some language in there you don't like that the federal government requires, and you'll certainly see that in the final version. But I'd be more interested in what this board needs out of this kind of service.
So you got the wording for the federal grant that you need to put in there, and you're still working on that.
We are working on it.
Okay. All right, I think we'll do that then. Wait till he comes back next meeting. Maybe we'll have something definite, but look over this. If you have any comments or suggestions for Patrick, please let him know. Of course, we can't talk about this amongst ourselves unless we do it now. So if you got any questions about it, I'd like to hear them now. All right, hearing none, let's move on.
Okay, the bulk of what's in the packet are copies of OPA's existing policies and bylaws, meeting procedures, and things of that nature. It's been discussed a number of times, updating these. What I wanted to do is put them back in front of you and have you refamiliarize yourself with them. They're not that old. They're actually fairly well written. I have made some comments as I've gone through them, but what I wanted to avoid was recreating a wheel and then charging you for all of that time. When you have documents that are in existence, that are usable, that are not terribly old, don't need significant update. So I just wanted to put them back in front of the board so that you could remind yourself of them, take a look at them. There are some things that I am going to recommend that we change, given some recent activities. But overall, the way this board is structured, the way this board likes to operate, I don't see a need for wholesale change. And so really, I just wanted to bring this back up for discussion so that I can get some feedback from the board on what it thinks needs to be adjusted, needs to be updated. Certainly, I will be looking at it for those same things, but I wanted to hear from the board, and I also wanted to remind the board that these documents exist. They probably haven't been read in a while. And I also am trying to be sensitive of the amount of work that is put into something like this so that you don't get a significant legal bill to rewrite policies that you already have and that were well written and not written that long ago.
All right, what we've got is the resolution from 2015, and let's thumb through that a little bit and see if you have any questions about any of the procedures. Number one is, you want to scroll down, help us scroll down there. Yes.
So you have, I'll kind of go through them. You have the 2015 resolution with deals with sort of the conduct of your public meetings and how you adopt Robert's rules and your minimum standards of conduct and things like that. That's the first resolution, which was signed in April of 2015.
And that includes the year of civility, the policy and procedures, the agendas,
Right.
Form of agendas, things like that.
Then after that, you have basically a template for your agenda, which you currently follow. That was part of the resolution. You have the election of the new officers in November. You have a Robert's Rules cheat sheet, which is, I've never seen a one-page cheat sheet of Robert's Rules.
I know.
The book itself, you can,
surprised me.
yeah, the book itself, you can hold the door open. So whoever put this together did a good job.
Let me stop you.
Sure.
The election of officers, should we put in there how we do that? Where it says, first thing is the election of the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer take place each November. That's basically all it says. Should we add the procedure that's done by?
Yeah, the only thing that it mentions is, it's in November and you take a vote. And then it talks about who needs to sign what, some administrative things. So if there's additional information as to the procedure of election that we want to include, certainly we can do.
If you got any suggestions, incorporate it in there and send it to Patrick. I've got some suggestions. I like that, Robert.
Then you've got a procedure for handling motions. There's some guidance on how to accomplish things. You know, so some of this is very elementary. And you also, to my knowledge, you don't have any committees. But if you were to ever create one, there's a method in there for that. Actually, two differently formatted copies of the same kind of procedure for handling motions and things of that nature.
Are these things we've adopted already?
They were attached to the resolution and they were provided by Rosanna. So it's my understanding that these are in existence, and
I don't think we use some of these.
yeah, some of them don't seem applicable. So I don't know if this is a generic.
We could red line.
Then there's just some sort of disclaimer for disclosures of gifts and donors, Florida gift law. And I will mention there was a question about, I think Rosanna posed it, whether board members are required under state law to do the annual ethics training. And Commissioner Hill pointed out, I often forget sort of the unique nature of this body. It's not a standard municipality. And so there is an exemption. I encourage you all to do that. It's not necessarily fun. It can be annoying, but it also can protect you in the future.
I'm doing it, and Rosanna and I are both doing it. One with you, that's on this building.
Yeah, we had, and while we're on that subject, we had done it, I had done it over at the County Block had done it, and, but
Yeah,
it was there.
it could be readily available, that the Florida League of Cities offers it. I would encourage you to do that, either have Rosanna put a an annual reminder, but it would be very wise for you to participate in that.
But it is an annual requirement.
For standard elected officials, it's due before the end of the year, which is the July timeframe,
Okay.
not the calendar year, the state fiscal year.
We did it one time.
Well, next year we're gonna do the code. That's the way. What do you code? I'm not ready for the 1 year.
I thought that we should have something that was more like standard rules than the resolution.
Like what's attacked, or is that
What do you mean now?
we're not gonna catch
I
all?
apologize. I was calling Mike about the FFP place.
No, I was just saying that I think we should have some rules that are, just rather simple instead of the resolution. The resolution to me always struck me as like negative, it just sounded like, it sort of sounded like they were having some problems. But just to have basic rules, which I know when you go to the city chambers, they have them on the wall. Like it's just kind of basic, like rules of 3 minutes to speak. Fill out a form if you want to speak, state your name and address, like sort of basic things for the public to know. Usually there's something about quasi-judicial proceedings, which
You don't do.
we don't do.
So more rules for the public than for the board, or both.
I'm trying to remember what they have on the wall of the city, but
That's more for the public, I believe.
it's like it's very long.
Mhm.
Just like see something a little bit similar.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here we could take out for sure.
And then I think it's good to do the ethics training if we are willing to take that as a rule for our board. I think it would improve the way we
No, that's not a class on Robert's Rule of Law.
know.
I'm not,
No, it's ethics.
Yeah.
And sunshine.
sunshine law.
Mhm.
That includes the sunshine law.
it's sunshine and then there's some
That's what I was
records, there's gifts.
Okay,
Yeah, it should be very comprehensive because certainly for elected officials, it's designed to be a one-time, you do it once a year, you get everything, you don't have to do one on public records and one on gifting, and it's a one-time, it's meant to just, let's cover it, let's get it checked off the, off the box.
Friday, I think it's Friday, is it this Friday? Yeah,
I'll be there also.
good.
Then you see up there 2014-2, that's your public records policy. There are some needed changes there. And I've been working on that for a while, again, not unlike the security services contract. The problem with modeling our public records policy off of another municipal entity is we don't have a clerk, we don't have, other than Rosanna, which I don't mean this in any negative way, we don't have a staff or repository. So it has to be really tailored to who we are and what we are. But obviously, since I've been involved, this has been a big issue. It's taken a lot of time. So we do need to modernize this, but it's not a wholesale change. Again, it's actually fairly well written, tailored to this body rather than a larger county municipality that has, law enforcement agencies and detention centers and child welfare issues. I mean, those public records policies are very large. We do need to make some changes based on some recent experiences and some hurdles that we've been trying to overcome. But again, I don't think a wholesale change is going to result in anything much different than what you already have.
So one example that came up recently at the county was a failure to have a retention policy for text messages and a policy about text messages. What constitutes a public record, and then a system or policy for retaining text messages. And I think for emails on personal email addresses, which none of us are using at this point, but for any personal email correspondence that relates to public business, so it's the content of the email, if it is anything that could ever come before us, then it is a public record, even if it's on your personal device or your personal laptop, your phone. And so if you're not able to make that available for inspection, then you need to have a system for retaining it. So one of the things that the Florida Ethics Office has advised me is that if you get a text message, you screenshot it and you send it to the admin. And you should have a response on your text messages, sort of a canned response that I don't text public business. Please email me at this address for public business. And actually, I texted someone at the city, just a personal text message to one of the employees whose daughter is in the same school as my daughter. And I got an automatic response that said, if this is city business, email me here, which is great.
Right, the policy that, and I've looked at those, and obviously I've seen what's aware of what's recently happened. The policy that I would recommend, that I would implement or afford, would be no texting on your personal devices. You don't have court issued cell phones. Some municipalities do that. You see folks carrying around 2 cell phones. So when we make that change, and that is one of the changes on personal devices, the policy should be no OPA texting on personal cell phone. And so you either develop a canned response or you find out who it is one way or another and email them. I know we had a previous issue with an email address that wasn't working, and so a personal email address was being used. Again, it doesn't matter if, and you'll be taught this if you haven't already, it doesn't matter if you're using a personal email address. If you were talking about OPA business, then it's fair game, it's a public record. That doesn't mean all of your personal communication becomes a public record, but it creates a problem. And it creates a intrusion into your personal device and your personal email account. So it's a especially with texting, it's a situation that all government entities in the state of Florida deal with on a daily basis. So again, I'm going to make some changes to it, not only in regard to that, to modernizing it, but to how we field some of the inquiries, who has the documents, things of that nature. But it'll be more of an amendment than a rewrite. And the same goes for your procedures, bylaw. I think your bylaws are fine, but your meeting procedures that we've just talked about, we can kind of trim these up and slim them down. I think the main issue probably is that most of these don't really get looked at that often. You have an update in 2019 regarding the time taken to respond to public records. I'm not sure why that change was made, but the law doesn't specify a particular amount of time. It specifies, reasonableness and excessiveness, which are rarely helpful descriptions, but that's what the law says.
Yeah.
And then actually there's a memo in here from 2018 that Commissioner Hill wrote, which is not a commissioner. That's very demonstrative and helpful as well. So we can update these. Again, I welcome feedback. But I'll make some changes and get kind of a red line in front of you. One of the difficulties with doing this is all of these documents are PDF, so they're really hard to change, but we're going to need a new resolution. So part of my system. That's there.
Yes, sir.
I just was reviewing in regards to public meeting.
Can you come up to the microphone, please?
Sure. There is,
Right up here, right up here. Identify yourself, name and address, please.
Localix 96406 Chester Road, Yulee. So on the Attorney General's website, there is frequently asked questions in regards to some of the things about public records. There is a sunshine law that has all of the answers to the questions that were just brought up in regards to what's public record, what's required in regards to having a public meeting and allowing people to speak, time limits and all. It's pretty straightforward here. That's the only thing.
Notice we have some charges in there for public records. Local copies and we have up to date.
Yeah, the reality with those is that more often than not, we're dealing with electronic documents. Folks don't want to pay to have paper copied, and it takes longer and things like that. So those are generally fine. What we have seen, recently and had to invoke is the additional IT support needed to search and locate and identify and review. But the statute covers that, charges for that as well.
One way to accomplish some of this without spending too much legal time would be to have a workshop. I mean, where we go through and draft things.
Well, I think I'll let Patrick come up with kind of a cut version, a simple version that we could look at and then try to amend that. How about that?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take too much time to make the changes to the public records policy. I think more than anything, what I wanted to talk about, because what we had talked about was redoing it or writing new ones or things of that nature. And so I wanted to see what you had. I had seen it before, I just hadn't looked at it in a while. Go through it a little bit closer with the hope that we wouldn't be recreating the wheel and spending an enormity of time trying to take another group of policies and model them towards.
Okay. All right, see what you can come up with, and then we'll decide if we need to do a workshop to
And
go through it and amend it.
as you all individually are looking at it, please provide comments individually directly to me, and I'm happy to discuss any of this on the phone. I think the only other thing in my report that I'll mention, that I think everybody knows, is that Nassau County Property Appraiser has filed a complaint against OPA regarding tax exempt status. To my knowledge, OPA has not been served. I have not been contacted by the property appraiser's attorney. A little perplexed, but it is, where we've read it, we're working on it, we're reviewing the procedural posture of it. Chairman Floyd had already forwarded to me the Gulf Breeze case, so I read that and we're preparing, but as of right now, there's no deadlines because we haven't been served.
I'd like to make a comment about that publicly, that we were not served. We have not been served. Okay? All right.
Well, you can waive service. So,
I haven't
yeah.
even been contacted.
You've been contacted to do that,
But to come out in the front page of the newspaper is just not good ethics as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
well, I'm not sure if what was printed in the newspaper, what property taxes would be if we had to pay it anyway. It's some of that would be exempt. But I think we're on pretty solid ground and we'll move forward whenever we can, whenever we have to. Okay? Anything else, Patrick?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right, let's go to our fourth accountant. Pierre, give us some good news.
So we have the money,
Yeah,
so we received
Got it
$116,000 today, right?
101.
$116,733 for our first reimbursement for the ARPA.
Now, where have those been deposited
Right now, they're in the maintenance account
and where are we gonna transfer them to?
to the regular operating. Yeah, I mean, obviously, they only went into the maintenance account because that's the account that we have set up for automatic, because most of the 99% of our activity with the state is grants. And so the ACH, the automatic deposit, is set up for the maintenance account for the state, because that's where, again, that's where the grants, when we're doing maintenance projects, when we're doing capital acquisition, things like that, most of those should go into the maintenance account to be processed. So, but we will transfer that in the next day or two into the operating account, and
When will you make your next request?
so we said we were due every 2 or 3 months for the payroll.
And this one was through December.
Right. And so, this month, or at the end of this month,
Okay.
so it'll be 3 months of payroll, so that'll be essentially about $30,000. So that's obviously, for the ARPA grants. Because right now, as I said, the only thing we're doing
Right.
is payroll.
Right.
So, So, are you gonna do anything with this money? Do you pay the
You wanna
bills
talk
that we
about
have
that
currently? It's up to you.
Go ahead and do the budget report and then we'll talk about.
I don't have a budget report.
You don't have to know.
You want a budget report?
Oh, that's right. No. Never mind. Yeah, well, I think any suggestions about what we can do with that money? I have one
So,
suggestion. that I'd like-
Before we take suggestions,
Okay,
see, we have quite a few bills outstanding.
yes.
So we have the auditors, that you pay, that,
And
that's 20,
legal,
right? So,
RSH, Morgan and Jenkins.
right, so Malden and Jenkins is 21,300.
I'm sorry, say again.
21,300. Obviously, we have RSH, which is the master plan.
Yes,
Their invoices for 71,940. And we have the legal invoices for February and March, which was approximately 40,000. Approximately.
I didn't add it. Maybe it's- I don't know.
No, for those.
No,
Take it.
About 100, what did we get back?
100, it's more than what we have. So we have 115,000.
Okay, and that we total up to about 133. We have other funds covered if we want to go ahead and bring everything up to date, right? No. Talk to
So we're waiting for the reimbursement for the monthly fees, but that's $20,000.
right.
That's to pay your payroll for January, for due on April 1st. That's about half that amount. You here and there, that money's basically gone. Maybe $5,000 left in that money. So
I think we need to pay these three things. They're outstanding. I think that's priority, don't you think?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, so obviously, yeah. I mean, obviously I'd like to get Malden Jenkins paid.
Yes.
Obviously, the question is, the kept hard thing about, how do we, obviously, we do not have that money to pay. How?
Or voice count.
We'll get into that second.
Pay the attorney right.
Maybe we pay him half, get the rest later.
These items are budgeted and some aren't. right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
it's difficult to make decisions when you don't have all the accounts listed. I know it's not a regular meeting, but it's a big decision to make reimbursement. I mean, just
Well-
pulling out of the ARPA money.
So the Malden Jenkins fee is budgeted. But, you know, we should have money in the account, but we spent that money. So,
That's the old one.
correct. Well, I mean, obviously, parts of the attorney fee. Small part of it.
No. If it's okay with everybody, I'd like to pay Malden and Jenkins and pay Reynolds, Smith and Hill so they could start back on the master plan. We talked about that at the last meeting. I think it's important we get that master plan started back up.
You want to leave it broke? Can we give
Yeah,
them
that's 93,000.
I thought we had already authorized the RSNH payment the last meeting.
yes, but we were waiting for the ARPA funds. We didn't have-
Okay.
Yeah, I thought,
Yeah, we did not have ARPA funds from the last.
Yeah,
meeting.
that was gonna come out of the ARPA funds.
well, that was the discussion. Right?
Yeah.
So that was where are we, do we want to direct these ARPA funds?
You can certainly hold.
All right,
I did, yeah.
No.
don't push him.
I got people that owe me money for 12 months ago. So.
Would you be interested in long?
Okay, well, any objection to paying those two?
The one concern I have is just the purpose of the money is supposed to be recovery money, and I don't see the nexus between the RSNH master plan and that.
So we have submitted and been reimbursed for wages, which are part of the ARPA grant. That is the purpose for which this money is
Well, we
provided.
got that money back. Now
So
we
we do not need to
we
spend
can
it.
use it for anything we
Right,
want.
so we have the ability to take the amount that would have been paid in wages and use that for other things.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. So no, the grant does not specify that we are being reimbursed for eligible expenses. So we are not forecasting forward.
Right.
So we have submitted eligible expenses to the grant and received payment for those eligible expenses. So there's no requirement that these be spent on eligible expenses on the grant, because we've already submitted the eligible expenses. And that was approved by, so that's when we went to, from a forecast into a reimbursement, right? We changed it specifically to say, no, we don't want to forecast, we don't want to decide how we're gonna spend this. We're gonna send you, we're gonna pay the bills, and we're gonna send them to you for reimbursement. And that's what, as I said, wages are typically allowed under this grant, and that's what we submitted. And that's what's been paid by the grant.
Right.
And that's, so remember, we've used this money, so we've drawn down our reserves to pay these amounts in the past. And so we're essentially refilling our reserves, right? 21,000 from Alton Jenkins should be sitting in our bank account right now.
But we used it for
Other things.
what?
It's what?
Legal.
Legal fees, vote.
But the legal fees were
You know,
reimbursed.
the tugboat was paid out of the maintenance account, so it's not out of the operating account,
The legal fees were reimbursed though, right? 30,000.
30,000.
We've got that.
Spend much more, 30,000.
We've got that.
30,000?
Yeah.
Yes, 32,000, I think, 32,500.
Okay,
That was just for one case.
right.
Pilot payment, or the pilot payment dispute, and then just the general representation of the board.
And then we still gotta look forward to.
Expense, petitioning the termination of the exemption, which we handled.
Now, our master plan, that'll be reimbursed on a grant.
50%,
Part of it.
up to, right now, up to 150,000.
Right.
50%, so of this 70,000, 71,000, 50% will be reimbursed by the state of Florida, yes. But in the same way, that grant operates the same way. We submit expenses that we've incurred, and they reimburse us for them.
And where does that money go?
Same goes to the operating account to be used for future.
So half of that 71,000. Any other comments about that?
What the payments coming out? That means it's out of this one, roughly 30,000. No, 20.
About 24, about 20,000.
20. Okay.
Be 93,000 for
Right.
out of 116.
Okay. So I mean, there's a little. But then you're going to submit for 30,000 this pay that you passed, and then we'll submit for 35,000 back for the 71. So that'll throw that back up. Right. Okay.
Well,
For the next expenses.
pretty quick.
For the next round.
Yeah, obviously, I would give it, give it anywhere from up to, 45 days, probably 45 to 75 days.
I'll
to
get it back.
get it by the time, from the time we submit the invoice.
That way don't get that 20.
Right, I mean, this was, I don't know when we did this invoice, but it was probably at least 45 days if we submitted the invoice. So, I don't know if this was the first one, so will they go smoother after that? I can't answer. This was approved pretty quickly by the people who review these, and it probably took at least 3 weeks for the state of Florida to process the payment.
Yeah, there's.
So, there's several steps to this.
I wanted to bring up because it didn't come up during the meeting the last time, but the maintenance account, if it gets above $1 million, then we get to keep the monthly maintenance payments. And every time the maintenance account has a balance, there's a request for that money. So it's never going to get to the point where we have reached that threshold.
About a 5,000.
Basically, a year, you're talking 20 years of $5,000 for it to get there, and not touching the green ones and the expensive ones.
I mean, the concept of a reserve really isn't a reserve. Every time there's a balance, there's a withdrawal.
Giving us the reserve because you got it there.
You cover it.
You don't put it there, have it.
But this was scheduled maintenance. It's not an unforeseeable cost. I mean, it wasn't like an accident or, it
Yeah.
wasn't a
It was
one-off.
scheduled maintenance, but it was above more than scheduled maintenance, because the estimate was what, 40-something thousand with the bills.
70, I thought, and it's 201.
It was more than the scheduled maintenance.
Yeah, they found a whole lot more wrong.
So, back to, I think the maintenance point last time. $3.3 million of new capital equipment has been matched with no input from the OPA in the last 3 years. All that money should have come from the maintenance. Right, that's maintenance and capital. Like the $5 million trainings have a $2.5 million match.
And that grant funding and the operator pays.
So the operator paid it.
Right.
So because they obviously wanted the asset, but essentially that $3.3 million that is matched, that has to be matched for the grants, has been paid, would have come from the maintenance account if the funds had been available.
Right, I don't dispute that the assets are there that were, funded through the revenues of the port.
Mhm.
There's an operator in place, but that's still a public port.
Mhm.
It's a public port, so so to say that, we should be, I guess, grateful that the revenues of the port, that some of them are being applied toward reinvestment in assets in the port, I don't see the point. What's the point of saying that there was a match? Because the match comes from either A, conduit bonds, which are public business bonds, or it comes from revenues from a public business. It's not like some private individual showed up and just gave us private money. That's not the case.
That money came out of the bond, you're right.
Yeah, which are public. I mean, it's all public business.
But they're not. So those assets belong to citizens of Florida.
Right,
The citizens of Florida do not owe those bonds, and do not pay those bonds.
but the revenue of the port is pledged to pay those bonds, which is public business.
Comment about the employee, we talking about, we're doing something for the employees, so we're not forgetting them, just pushing them off. It's coming.
We're not figuring that out because we can't get the people.
We're doing it. Doing it.
Move on. Anything else, Pierre?
Do you want to talk about the small government or
About what?
small equity support?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we got, we're gonna pay for the,
Yeah, paying those two bills. Malden Jenkins and Rome Clifton Hill, unless
Right.
somebody's got an objection.
And by the way, you asked the money, the rest of the money will go to legal fees. I mean, we're not keeping any money in the account. We have 2 months worth of legal fees to pay.
Yes. That takes small chip off of it. No. We're giving some gas money.
I like how you think I get that.
They're making money for your company. Give them home for the year. All right. Alden Jenkins. Which one you want to look at first?
So obviously we'll do the report first. The black cover.
Yeah.
So that's the actual audited financial statements is what you're looking at. So I've already sent you, I emailed you a copy of this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the formal report. As I said, this is the audited financial statements for the year ended September 30th, 2021. There are, you know, it's a clean opinion. Obviously, you have the auditor's opinion page on page independent audit reports, the first thing you keep one, right? So, and then obviously on page 4 is the MD&A, management discussion and analysis, which you prepared. I prepared for you, but essentially that's already put in things. Very nothing. We're not highlighting anything other than financial and what the financials say. And then obviously we have the financial statements on pages 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I don't know that I have any comments about any of the financial statements. As we said, you know, we're in a pretty healthy position. Obviously, we're adding $3 million, $10 million of assets over the next couple of years. So that will increase our position, our net health position as far as our equity position, because all of that money goes into investments in capital assets, which is in the equity section if you look at page 9. And you can see there's $5 million been added there. Obviously, the cranes were not completed at the time this report was done. So the cranes were not, the new cranes were not, the 2 North Carolina cranes were not added yet. And I don't have any other comments unless anyone has any specific questions about any of the reports. As I said, they reflect the same kind of reports that we see on a quarterly basis, in a little bit more summary detail. And on page 13 starts the notes and financial statements. I do encourage you to read these some quiet night. But they are interesting. They do tell you about how we account for things before our accounting policies and stuff like that. It's a good summary. If you don't know anything else, at least read these to have an overview of the port and, like I said, how the accounting and the financials and what they represent, what the numbers. Again, it talks about capital assets on page 18. You have the detailed capital assets. You know, again, long-term debt, conduit debt on page 19, et cetera. The management agreement on page 20. So if we keep flipping back past, past page 21, you'll get to the other independent auditors report. So obviously we have 2 so skip that first report. Essentially just a compliance on internal controls using government accounting standards. Again, there's no issues noted in any of these reports. The next report is the one I want to talk about, is the independent audit report on compliance for each major federal program and state projects. Obviously, this is what's traditionally called the Yellow Book audit. So, and you can see if you go to page 27, we had two federal or state grants that were in excess of $1 million. So we had the U.S. Department of Transportation grant of $1.039 million, and the state Florida Department of Transportation Seaport Grant Program had $1.7 million. So each one of those grants is obviously comes with a grant agreement, and obviously the auditors review those and ensure that we are in compliance with the grant agreements. And this report is issued by them that says we are in compliance with those grant agreements. And that's all I have.
Significant deficiencies, do we have any?
No, there's no deficiencies noted in any of these reports. Okay. So all these reports are clean and they have no reports. This report goes to will be uploaded to the Florida State Auditor General, as part of our annual filing as the Ocean Highway Port Authority, so that will be done in the next few weeks. It's not due until June, I think. So as I said, that's the final step, is to upload it, and that essentially completes our reporting and our requirements for the September 30th, 2021 fiscal year.
Right, so it says on the page 30.
Yep.
The reason I asked.
Yep.
Significant deficiencies identified not considered to be material weaknesses.
Doesn't it say none? Page 30.
Says yes. Not considered to be material weaknesses. Yeah.
Yep.
What does that mean?
So I think you'll find that in the next report, so.
Oh,
we can, well, it's on the next page, 231. So it is, I thought it was only in the next report, but it is, if you go to page 31,
Okay.
that's what they're talking about.
All right. The authority did not submit its quarterly progress report to the county. That's basically what it says.
So the federal grant requires quarterly filings. And
Who's responsible for that?
one operator says they're not responsible.
Well, somebody's got to be responsible to get it done. Who would that be? It's not port operator.
Well,
Yeah,
so I
He
think,
handles the grant, right?
so I think that's where, so if you remember, you signed the third quarter report. So because, because we have no port director at this time. So those reports are supposed to be signed by the port director.
Okay.
So the port director needs to do it.
All right. In the meantime, how can we not get this kind of report next time?
Right, so right now, we are, so obviously, I spoke to Malden Jenkins, and we need to do these reports. So that this doesn't show up on future reports, obviously, so we are stepping in to do those reports to catch it up. So what, if you look, we promised that we would file every report. So, I mean, the question is, we're not sure, so there was no proof of mailing, first of all, for the first, second, and third quarter. So obviously we are refiling the first, second, and third quarter. We need to file the fourth quarter, and then we need to get to be able to file every, I believe it is due within 15 days or 10 days of the end of each quarter. So we need to be in place to do that, and then at some point. So
Are we doing it?
yes,
That's
at this point right now, yeah.
Somebody's got to do it.
Right. So
I'm sure you'll send some bill for that.
yes,
Yes, I'm sure.
it's not in my job description, sure. But obviously, you obviously stay current with it, and obviously we want to make sure we stay current with this. I mean, obviously this could affect our ability to get future federal grants, and so again, we're going to step in for the time being, make sure it's done. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if they're appointed as port director, I mean, the question is who should be responsible for these?
Right.
Again, we've taken over responsibility for the ARPA grant. Who, this used to be done by Laura DeBella. Who is responsible for this? For making sure that they're responsible at this point. Again, as you see in the audit report, it notes that we are this is a small organization. We have one, not even full-time person. And so whose responsibility is it? These are OHPA grants. So whose responsibility is it to make sure they're filed, and how can it be done, and make sure that it's done? So.
All right, well, we appreciate you doing that. And whatever we need.
And so the second, so, yeah, I thought this only showed up in here, but obviously this second one is more of just a kind of a discussion and analysis from Malden and Jenkins, gives you an overview of Malden and Jenkins. Again, talks about the independent audit report, who's required, and this is more about how the audit is conducted and what they need, what they're required to do, required communications and those kind of things. About the, you know, obviously the management, the management rep letter that you signed, Commissioner, you know, kind of just what are their issues, and you'll see on page 8 is that same issue noted again. So is that the accounting related matters. The rest, the page 8, you know, everything beyond that is just potential changes and some changes to accounting policy for government accounting that 99% of them do not apply to us. They may, in some cases, if we acquire equipment and things like that. But as I said, most of them aren't going to be applicable in our area. So they're more just generic governmental accounting issues that we're keeping track of. And yes, do they impact the Portage, don't they? But given our small organization, given the fact that we don't have benefits, given all those things, they don't really have an impact on us. That's the reports, as I said, unless there's any comments. I don't know if you want to formally adopt the reports. Like I said, the next step for us is to actually submit these to the Auditor General, the Florida Auditor General office. So, right, well, so yeah, do I have your consensus that we are okay with these things? We don't need to vote and adopt these.
The board's going to adopt them.
I make a motion to move forward with the report and send them on their way.
The things I didn't realize they were in.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All right. It's been made and seconded to adopt the reports and send them on to the
I didn't realize that they had sorry, for interrupting. I didn't realize that they had this summary or approval of the USDOT grant. Because we've had discussions about that at our board meetings about whether or not it complies with the grant requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't provide a legal determination, they say. But I don't, I'm not sure that I could say that I don't have anything out there. Because we've discussed these concerns, we've asked for control. We have to date not received the requested revenue documents for the DUG. So I don't feel comfortable saying that this is correct.
Okay, well then I suggest you call the auditor or express your concerns, obviously. That, you know, yes, they review the grant, and no, it's not a legal opinion. They're not legally reviewing the grant, but there are requirements for reporting and for in the grant.
And that's what this is.
And that report says that we are in compliance with things. If you believe that that is incorrect, then I suggest you contact the auditor immediately. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this report is issued. Obviously, no one expressed any concerns at the time they were doing the audit, as far as I understand. If you have concerns, then we need them immediately communicated, because again, first of all, I don't know what their reaction is going to be. I've never had that kind of issue, and it depends what, you know, what the issue is. That we're, you know, what's the issue, and is it, you know, is there a contractual issue that, you know, again, there's a grant agreement, there's a legal agreement as far as I understand. That was signed.
That would not change the report tonight,
What?
what he's asking.
Well, but are you saying that they are not complying with the grant agreement as written? Is that what you're implying or saying? There's a grant agreement.
Right.
That defines what this money was given to the port for.
Right.
Are you saying that the grant agreement, that there's something in it, because that's what the auditors prefer,
Mhm.
right? They're not getting into the operational, they're not getting into the grant agreement provides this, it's for the, when we're talking about the tugboat, it's for the marine highway X. Why?
Has nothing to do with that.
Well, it has nothing to do with, so it has, they review the grant agreement and they ensure that we, the port, is in compliance with the agreement.
Right,
Spend the money.
But the agreement requires that we make quarterly reports.
that's the only.
Thing they found.
All right, got a motion and a second to adopt the reports and send them to the state. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No,
Motion carries 4-1. All right.
so I will call and just confirm, because to me, it's not clear what this, what it includes. The evidence of compliance, you know, if it's regard to the Port Authority's compliance with what would be requested, the information we're providing,
No, it's
payments
not,
that are being made.
no, because that's not part of the grant.
Right.
What you're requesting is, you know,
Well, it's
It's-
technically not in service. So this particular grant is technically not supposed to be like, it's considered to be in development.
right,
Right. Okay.
and the grant allows that, the grant,
Well, we don't know that because when we've asked, we haven't gotten a clear answer about whether or not that's permissible.
but there's no,
Conflating the two issues.
right, but there's no, in the grant, there is no
Right.
volume requirement, right? There's nothing in the grant that says within 5 years, we have to be moving X amount of, I do not believe, right? That the grant does not say that within 5 years, we have to be moving X amount of cargo.
Mhm.
I mean, you've read the grant, I'm pretty sure, again, without the grant in front of me,
But
but
when I've asked them, they've said this is not supposed to be in service. It's not in service yet. It's in development.
when you ask who,
The N95,
right? But when you ask who,
the US DOT,
We didn't have a grant for the N95.
it's the tug. It's the tug grant. That's the one that they have the letter here for.
so the US DOT, I'm not sure I'm saying what you're saying, right? So the US DOT is telling you
It's not in service yet. It's technically not in service, like it's considered to be like in development.
right, and they provided us tug as part of building that
We're
service,
talking
about building the infrastructure.
And
The
all
bar
that
service.
so it's supposed to go along with that. Well, we're still, the tug's in service, we're using it for other things right now. Barge service has not been set up yet, so.
But there's nothing in the grant that requires it to be, there's nothing in the grant language. I mean, you have to, again, the grant itself says X, that they will provide us the funds to purchase a tug to, as part of the marine highway. But it doesn't say, suppose the marine highway goes away, it doesn't say that the grant has, the tug has to go back.
Marine highway.
Right. It doesn't require, it doesn't have any volume requirements. It has no timing requirements. It just says it's part of the infrastructure that they're creating for the marine highway. I'm not sure I understand.
So the tug's in service. That's your point. So- How you say that, the tug's in service is being used for other things.
So if you have doubts, again, you need to discuss those with Mullen and Jenkins, obviously. Again, this is their, again, you see the report they've issued.
Mhm.
Okay, they're saying we're in compliance with the grant requirements. That's all I could say. If you believe we're not in compliance with the grant requirements, you need to make that clear to them as to why you think that is.
Okay.
And then obviously we will determine a course of action from there.
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
So they normally would come and do a report, but we don't have them come and do that. They do it as part of the engagement.
We
But they're
can,
not gonna talk about it.
we just got these reports. They just got finalized. Obviously, we can invite them up, schedule them to come to a meeting. Yes, they have come to meetings and has to actually do this presentation. So,
All right, let's move on, please. All right, is that all you got, Pierre?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it.
All right, port operator. Chris? I've got on here the tariff red line, you've got to the next meeting for that.
You'll have.
And you're working on that,
Yes.
okay? You need anything from us to help with that?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, fabric warehouse is on here. Where do we stand on that?
We've stated that at the appropriate time, the plans will be submitted to technical review committee and permitting in City of Fernandina. We'll let you know when that's going to be.
Okay. First, I've got two invoices here from the Florida Ports Council. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about them, but they're outstanding invoices and they were sent. I was copied on this. I think you have them.
I have them.
And why haven't they been paid? Doesn't that get paid out of the grant funds that we got?
Well, I would ask Pierre to review them. We just got them. I think there's a possibility one of them may have been paid. But if not, then we'll address it.
You get a copy of that? Of those?
Because one of them's quite old, from 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they would be paid, all those would be paid from, so this is the 1.75 or 0.75
Yeah,
F-stead fee based on the amount of the grant received. So we would never pay that from OHPA funds. They would come from the project.
Right, but you get the funds back from FDOT
So,
first.
yeah,
Do
well,
you want it deducted before you?
That's fine.
Or do you want us to just pay it? I think
Either way,
You're
I mean-
paying it by deducting it is probably the best way.
okay, then we'll
You
do
have
that.
to account for it.
We'll do that. No problem. Yeah, I mean, so the next reimbursement will deduct.
Especially check in the one from 2019, because I don't know why that wouldn't have been paid.
No, I mean, so I know that
Fees and-
if they weren't paid by Worldwide, they were not paid. So this, you know, what we've agreed to is we're gonna deduct it from the reimbursement, the next reimbursement we receive from the state of Florida for grant funds.
Okay,
So we have two invoices in for reimbursement. So once we get those, we'll pay those. That's not the way we've handled, we've never handled it this way. I don't have a problem doing it that way, but usually these would be paid.
one of them was the lighting port-wide and warehouses.
Mhm.
And the other grant was master.
Usually they would be paid out
As matching funds,
by the operator.
right?
But not from the port master.
I mean, this is a fee for, so FDAG manages these funds, right? And they award these grants or somehow have a hand in awarding these grant amounts. And they essentially add this administrative fee. So FDAG is not part of the state of Florida, right? So obviously we pay dues to this organization. And for the amount of funds that they secure and pass through to the courts, they request a, right, whatever you want to call it. But
I'm gonna call it a straight fee. But on this, the lighting, didn't that get sent back?
no, this is a,
Different lighting. grant.
Oh, different.
yeah, this is an older lighting grant from, I believe.
No, G1700. Is that the one that just got canceled, Chris?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So we didn't even,
So then,
And you
obviously,
think that-
then we need to have a discussion with FDAG,
Right.
whether the money, if we didn't spend the grant money,
Right.
is the fee payable?
okay,
No, there's one for pure maintenance and improvements.
So again, they,
Oh, that's the project, but it's the lighting grant. Or was it two?
no, there's the second one.
No, that's right.
Right. I will have to look up the project numbers, and again, I'm not sure yes, we just returned the fund, we're not spending a lot of grant. And so the question is this money payable if we haven't spent the grant?
Right.
So I can't,
We'll work with you on this. I can call my crewman and ask that question.
Okay, good.
or suppose we, like I said, the second one, I'm assuming that this peer improvement project,
Yeah, that's.
suppose we've only spent half of it,
Yeah.
is the full amount
Right. When does?
payable?
Right, that's the second question.
Right.
But
Yeah.
please get that taken care of. I hate getting those emails.
These aren't gonna be paid out of ARPA money.
No,
No.
Would it be reimbursed as well?
No,
no.
it's supposed to be matching.
No.
So they're
Okay.
gonna be paid out of, they're gonna be matched? I just wanna be
No,
clear.
they're not eligible for ARPA.
Okay, but they're gonna be paid out of the matching funds by the operator.
By the operator, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna be clear.
Yes. Okay. Oh. Anything else for Chris? I got some other things I'll do in a minute. Okay, let's move on to unfinished business. Financial request for the port operator. Commissioner Hill, was that yours?
That was from you. You just gave me a list.
I'm sorry.
You just gave me a list, but no, details on that
Yes,
agenda.
financial request that you were asking. Oh, was it for the tugboat? That was the public records request that you got from Arthur.
Like two letters, is that what that is?
Yes,
Like two love letters from you, Chairman?
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
You got so formal all of a sudden.
Well, you know, when you got a good attorney behind you, you get that way. Yeah. When are you gonna react to those or answer those?
Well, we're working on it. You had asked for the material by April 8th, so we can have it for the next meeting. So we'll look to do that.
Okay, very good. Well, I may have some information about that now. As far as the tugboat, you were asking about, I'm sorry, the cruise ships. You were asking Miriam about how much we got for the cruise ships. Have you got nothing? Did you look on the?
We did get that answer this week.
Yeah. We know how much he got for the cruise ships. Now, I'd like to talk further about the cruise ships. It's my understanding that the West Rock objections was that we could not use their property that we acquired for them for any part of the tugboat operations. I mean, cruise ship for a cruise ship terminal or parking or any kind of facility for cruise ship. Well, we're not doing that. That's all on the east side of the railroad tracks, that particular parcel of property. Where we use the cruise ship is on the west side of the railroad tracks at the docks. So we're not violating, I feel, their requirements that we not use that for a terminal. Patrick, what do you say?
Well, I have to remind this board that we have to be careful. We have, our firm has a relationship with West Rock. So, but I have looked at the property records, I've looked at parcels. It's my understanding that the cruise ship related activities I haven't verified this with my own eyeballs or anything, it's my understanding that the cruise ship activities take place on parcels that were not conveyed to OPA from West Rock.
Okay, any discussion? So I've told the operator to do if he wants to start doing business again with the cruise ships. I think it's gonna be okay. Now, we're gonna check with West Rock, we're gonna contact them and make sure they know what we're doing and see if there are any objections. I think once they find out that it's not property that they sold us, so that particular objection just doesn't fly. So,
Oh. I personally agree with what's been said by yourself and Patrick. I've been cautioned not to discuss our actual legal research on this publicly. But I'm being advised by our counsel that unless and until you get that affirmative green light from West Rock, we still feel we could be sued. You stated recently that West Rock threatened to sue you if we do that. And if they sue you don't sue us, we're in it together. That's the last thing we want, so I still feel not comfortable yet proceeding, but I'm hoping we can get there. In the meantime, we've had berth congestion in the last 2 calls where the cruise ship was on the hook in the river adjacent to the docks and using the tendering service because the docks were full with cargo ships. So we've got 2 more calls this spring with Victory, the Ocean Explorer, and then we can kind of hopefully get this sorted out by during the summer, and then you've got 5 calls in the fall, starting at September. Well, I would encourage you to continue. Let's complete that dialogue with Western. Let's get the time.
I will do my best. I have to go to Jacksonville first thing in the morning. I will do my best when I get back, try to call them, call the attorney that I've been talking to and talk to him.
Yeah, same fellow.
And see how, yeah, right, and see how they feel. And hopefully we can get this started back again. I think it's good for us, it's good for the community. We had a cruise ship come in last week and they anchored off the city marina, and we had that big storm come through, and they were dragging anchor because the wind was so high.
I was in the office while that was happening, watching that ship literally get pushed toward the city.
And they actually had to pick up anchor and move, and we allowed them to come park at our dock because the city cannot take that ship, it's too big.
Right. And I also understand there's draft issues down by the marina. That ship, even though it's only 50 feet longer than the American Cruise Line vessel, which does dock at the city marina, it goes 13 feet, which is almost twice as deep as that other cruise ship. So he can't even anchor down close. So yes, we immediately, that's a safe harbor emergency. So we immediately get permission to come to the dock and he was tied up with the overnight.
And they were using Kevin McCarthy to unload the passengers and take them up to the city docks and marina. And he called me and we had a long conversation about that. He cannot afford to do that. He says he's losing business catering to those ships. So either we lose the business totally, or we go back to doing it the old way. And I'm gonna try to get that worked out and I'll let you know. Okay. And there's some other things I want to talk to you about if that happens. So, okay. I got a report. Saw this report about there were some semis parking in the roadway outside the port, and someone called the city police. They went down. I don't want to read this letter to you, and you can comment on the steps we took. Says, good afternoon. Upon learning that there was an issue with semi-parking in the roadway outside the port, I made contact with both drivers who were from two separate businesses. Both drivers advised that there is a new system in place at the port which requires a confirmation number with an appointed time for entry into the port. Without that confirmation, the port will not allow the trucks to enter. Both drivers were advised of this change today, and both advised they were waiting for their confirmation times to enter. They were both verbally warned. As I spoke with port security to confirm the validity of those statements, there is indeed a new system in place with appointed times of entry. The system is supposed to alleviate the semi-trucks from sitting outside the gates until the port opens daily. He advised they are working out the kinks, but ultimately it should help with the constant port traffic calls. I foresee this being an issue for a little while until the kinks get worked out, and wanted everyone to be aware of this time. Thank you, Brittany Decker, police officer, Huntington Beach Police Department. You want to comment on that?
I think it's great that the police were called and responded. As maybe some of you from experience know, truck drivers are not the most cooperative individuals in some cases. They can be even belligerent, or they don't work for us. The appointment system is being implemented for certain trucks in order to do exactly as the officer said, to minimize any queuing outside, and the drivers have been instructed in writing, their dispatchers, that they cannot come early and wait for their appointment. They can always show up for their appointment and everything.
That's always been one of the complaints. They were coming before the port opened and they had to
Right.
sit there and
The city
wait.
also has a sign that there's no assembly until 6:45, which is good.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, she conflated two things. The statement that they're waiting for a pickup number. Well, that's as old as the port. A truck driver always has to have a pickup number when he shows up at any port. That's not new. That's just business as usual. But I personally, at lunch, saw two of those drivers, and I don't know what day this incident was reported. Does it have a date?
No, it doesn't.
The police report, a letter?
I've got it on my
Okay,
computer.
well,
I'll send a copy of this.
One day last week, I personally stopped my car, got out, and asked two drivers why they were waiting on the street and not flowing into the line. And they told me the same thing. They were waiting for pickup number. I said, well, you can't wait here. You know, you have to move out and come back when you have your pickup. And then I asked security to make sure they moved out.
So that you're talking about a confirmation number with an appointed time of entry?
Well, again, if there are vans that are picking up the 53 footers that are picking up pulp at the warehouses on 2nd Street, they require an appointment and a pickup number. Standard trucks that come through the truck gate on day, go over the scale, they don't require an appointment, but they require a pickup number.
Okay. All right, any questions about that? Comments? All right, I got a copy on an email from the city about the sewer line that they put in, and they need the city line, the old sewer line on port property based on the terms of the attached MOU. The city needs a Florida licensed engineer working for Oakwood to sign off and accept the project on port property. Do we have someone that can do that? Do you have?
I have the letter from Mr. Desolé.
Yes.
Who was the utilities director for the city of Fernandina. We don't have a licensed professional engineer on staff. I have had Dan Harrington call Mr. Desolé and ask that question. First of all, it seems clear that the engineer has to be employed by Oakwood. We've asked, do they have any, I think that's what it says in the letter. We've asked if they can recommend any such engineer. It is Oprah's line, it's not ours, but of course, we're part of the team that's taking care of Oprah's assets. So if we can find an engineer, he may have to technically work for Oprah, but I'm not saying we can't contribute to what the fee is. We also don't what the fee for something like would be.
So I asked the city, we don't have the approved plans. There's nothing for an engineer to review right now.
Right.
So we asked for the approved plans. Whomever has those, maybe, I think his name's Andre, he's out of town, we may have them.
Yeah, that's the way.
Right. We can find someone to review the plans. Per the interlocal agreement regarding the sewer line, it's not that they have to be employed by OPA, but OPA is responsible for paying to have that certification reviewed and concluded. So
If they need access to the line, we'll give them access.
the plans should be enough, provided they're thorough and complete, which I would expect, so we'll get working on it.
Thank you.
Also got an email about notice of commencement for the windows for the Customs House. Do you have that form for
I
me
do.
to sign tonight?
I have,
The original?
yes,
Okay, good.
Ron agrees with me on that. I have it here.
Very good. Okay, there were also talking to the FSO today, and he told me there were some problems with some of the truckers. The Homeland Security, or the CPB, did a surprise inspection on some of the truckers just to see what they could find. Well, they found some things. There were 3 incidents of firearms discovered during random search by vehicles, and the law says firearms are prohibited by Homeland Security on a marine terminal, so you can't do that. Now, I can kind of understand that. Truckers, they're out on the road all the time. They carry weapons for their safety. I understand that, but they've got to understand they can't bring them on board. They got to turn them in somewhere before they get there. So there were 3 incidents. They recovered firearms. And so I'm sure that won't happen. I hope that won't happen.
Well, so just to be clear, whenever we have these type of interactions with public entities under the operating agreement, we report them promptly to the chairman. I asked Ray Nelson to forward that information to you. US CVP on campus, on terminal, Parry, our port director from CVP, initiated that operation. And actually, they let the truck drivers know that the truck drivers can check their arms with CVP at the Yellow House, make their visit inside the terminal, and then pick up their weapon on the way out.
Right.
So I just want everyone to realize that. So now you know that when I stop on Day Street to accost the truck driver, I'm taking my life into my hands. If he doesn't like my attitude, boom. So that's the level of my commitment to this point. I think I'm gonna get myself one of those.
They conduct these kind of things occasionally, and I'm glad they do. And
Yeah, same
I
here.
think some of the truck drivers have learned a lesson from that. Also, there was an incident, and it doesn't say who it was, what, well, it says who it was, I'm not gonna say that, or why, fighting and disorderly conduct.
Well, what Ray did there is, over a period of a week or so, I don't have a copy of that. We had 4 or 5 trespass warrants issued at Ray's request. Bernardino PD was brought in to issue trespass warrants. One of them was a result of one of the temporary day workers involved in a fight with another worker. And then what does it say the others were associated with?
One of them was somebody, I think, a temporary worker from Jacksonville or somewhere, was taking pictures and videos of operations in or around a vessel
Right, which is prohibited by a Coast Guard regulation.
with a cell phone, and CBP interviewed him. I don't know what, I know he was escorted off and told him never to come back.
Well, the way, again, I'm learning this, the way the trespass warrants work around here is apparently the person is barred for a year.
Right.
Or maybe indefinitely, I'm not positive about that. So that's the purpose of it.
All right, but those are the security reports that I had.
You had
Also
one
got,
other one, I think, right?
No, there was only, that's the only,
About the, surprise inspection.
there
Oh,
were
no,
three of those that they took firearms from, and then the fight, disorderly conduct, and then the guy taking pictures.
Right, no, that was all the trespasses.
Oh, that was saying the same person, he got in a fight with somebody?
No,
Oh,
that was 5 incidences of trespass, right? What I'm
Oh.
saying is there's another topic that I think you got an email on also, about the surprise US Coast Guard inspection.
oh, I'm getting ready to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. I got this from Ray Nelson, who's the terminal manager and FSO, Facility Security Officer. Says Commissioner Forward, on Thursday, March 17th, 2020, at approximately 10:30, the U.S. Coast Guard conducted an unannounced security inspection of the terminal. I have the attached copy of their report, which indicates there were no discrepancies. No discrepancies translate to found to be in full compliance with facility security plan. And that facility security plan is the law on the board. You can't do anything that goes against the security plan. And I have a copy of the signed U.S. Homeland Security document right here.
Right, and just to add a note that facility security plan includes a paragraph called port of call, cruise ship port of call.
Right.
So
Right.
the cruise ship port of calls are actually approved in the facility security plan.
Okay, the last thing I have, we had our meeting with FDOT the other day, and they actually announced that Justin Ryan is going to be leaving. Leaving FDOT, he's going to be in charge of or working with, what was it he said?
He's going to work for JAXPort. He's going to manage the foreign trades.
The foreign trade zone, yeah, managing the foreign trade zone for JAXPort. They introduced, well, they didn't have it there, but the new person is, his name is Lauren Reed. He sent me her office email, phone number, and I have all that here if anybody wants to look at that. But she looks a lot better than Justin, I'll tell you that. She's gonna have some time learning. And
She's actually replacing Dan Fitzpatrick, who's the boss.
well, you're right.
She's Kyle.
Yes, and then they're gonna have to find another replacement for Justin.
Yeah, so
So yeah,
Kyle.
that's right. This lady is replacing
Yeah, she's the
Daniel
senior.
Fitzpatrick,
Right.
was above Justin.
Right, and Kyle. So Kyle, you know,
Kyle.
Justin, Kyle will have to cover that until he can find and train.
Yes, he will. And he's gonna have a job on his
Yeah,
hands.
Justin was tremendously knowledgeable and thorough and efficient. We're gonna miss him.
All right, also under unfinished business, you got anything posted on the community link on the website? Anybody?
Nothing that I'm aware of. I didn't get any reports this week on anything.
Master plan, we've already talked about the master plan, Fort Glenn's tugboat. I've talked about that. RFQ for the executive director, we've gotten 2 applications. Rosanna, you got the second one today?
I did not.
Okay, well, it'll come in this week. I know there's gonna be 2 at least. And make sure you look at those before the next meeting, because the deadline is right before the next meeting. So we need to look at those and decide how we want to go about interviewing them. If you want me to have them come here at the next meeting, we can do that. What's your pleasure? We need to get this done.
We need the timeline.
Oh, yeah, the deadline was, sorry. Good.
Are you circulating all the like the responses as you receive them?
Mhm.
Deadline was the 8th, right?
The deadline was the
April the 8th.
15th.
No, it was before our next meeting. I think it was the 8th. That was looking at it. Next meeting's the 13th, so I'm pretty sure it was the 8th.
April 15th.
Huh?
There was advice from last meeting to move it from April 1st to the 15th.
One of the month.
I think we were talking about it at the end of the month meeting.
Okay,
This way, if you give people 30 days to reply. Yeah, that one, we're not going to look at 10 days.
okay, well, we'll just have to do it after that, then the second meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
If we go back to the tugboat item, I just had one question about the tariffs. The tugboat is gonna be included, right?
Yes, and you actually, Chairman Fuller has a copy of a rate sheet on the tugs that the agents have. It's not a regular addition to the tariff, but you do have that, right? Mr. Chairman,
I'm thinking,
It's months ago. Yeah, I remember.
I think so.
yeah, I mean, we can send it again, but yes, we'll include it in the tariff.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Feature.
Okay. All right, I'm still working on the future meeting dates and locations. I'll have that for you next meeting. And then we, under new business, any other unfinished business anybody want to talk about? We've talked about everything there. New business, property appraiser, we talked about that. Any other items to be brought by the commissioners? Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.